This is genuinely fun to play. I'm genuinely actually distracted right now in terms of me speaking. Okay, that immediately started a fight. Today we're going to be putting GPT 5.5 Pro to the test with a bunch of more intricate and rather difficult, at least in my opinion, tests. So for today's video, we're going to begin just with a brief look at the little bit of pertinent information that exists about GPT 5.5 Pro, as in this announcement post for the GPT 5.5 model family, which did come out about 3 days ago. Most of this was really centered on just the regular 5.5 model and not necessarily the Pro model, but they are both now available in the API as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the pricing, as that is rather significant, I suppose one could say. So feel free to subscribe, as I do want that 100K plaque, and let's get into it. We see 5.5 Pro is listed, and half of the benchmarks on this chart are not actually populated with this model. We can see here that sometimes it's not even hypothetically as performant as just the regular 5.5, but something we're going to notice, I would hope, in today's video is that this model really has some depth to its capability, and I have curated some specific tests that I've not ever done before with anything to really try to push this thing to its absolute limit. We do see one mention about 5.5 Pro. Early testers are seeing a significant step up in both the difficulty and quality of work it can take on, which is very good, as well as these latency improvements. And when I've been using 5.4 Pro or whichever model preceded that one as well, I found that results would come in between like 60 to 90 minutes for the types of things I was doing. A lot of them are like games, because I do find that fun. And something I am kind of interested in seeing as well is how long it takes, because 5.5 in general, I myself have noticed, as well as I've seen many others pick up on, it uses significantly less tokens and takes less time to produce results that are equal to or greater than what would have been given with 5.4. So though it is more expensive, perhaps it uses less tokens, and that's what all of these charts right here say. Now from this model card, we can see a bit more pertinent information about Pro, and this is just in the OpenAI developer website, where there's a bunch of information about all their models and things of the sort. Essentially, this is 6 times as expensive as the non-Pro 5.5. So the input for this is $30 per million input versus $5 per million input for regular 5.5. And this is $180 per million output versus $30 per million output for the regular 5.5. So 6 times as expensive. And even right here, we see GPT 5.5 Pro uses more compute to think harder and provide consistently better answers. They do even mention right here, some requests may take several minutes to finish. I find that some of the requests I've run in all of the Pro models that have basically existed ever will take upwards of 60 minutes. Even I've had some that have gone over 90 minutes, but the results were like, whoa. For the specifics about the context window and the cutoff date, we have a December 1st, 2025 knowledge cutoff, so that is very recent in the scheme of things. We have a 1 million token context window, a little over, and 128,000 maximum output tokens, which is a very, very healthy amount. In terms of our modalities, it is text and image in, so you can send it a picture and a sentence, and then output, it will just give you text out. But something I find, at least with using 5.4 Pro, is that even through the ChatGPT web app right here, when I was using 5.5 Pro for some things, it was functioning very agentically, where you can see in a side panel that opens up some of the things it does, and it was very competent. It wasn't just like, oh, okay, the only thing I can do is spit out the code here for the user to then try. It would see its results and understand them and iterate on them before providing a final solution, and this is something I would expect to see with this 5.5 Pro as well. So let's take a look at our first prompt. I have instructed it to create a low poly 3D gym game using 3JS called Tough Talkers. Now I know you're probably rolling your eyes like, really? Hold on one second and it will make more sense. The game is a free roam gym with the player controlling a character. It consists of walking around the gym and interacting with NPCs. In order to make the game fun, the inclusion of an AI-driven NPC dialogue system must be implemented. The core components for this system are as follows. Using a lightweight LLM via WebGPU like Gemma 270 million or Qwen 2.5 0.5b, 2.5 because it doesn't have thinking, and 3 plus does. It'll just be easier to use an older one for this specific task, or a different model that you believe would better suit this task. The lightweight LLM will drive an interaction system where the player gets near an NPC. They have the option to engage in a conversation by pressing a key. A chat bubble will appear where the player can send messages to the NPC, who will respond via the LLM with their response displayed in their own dialog box. Simultaneously, there will be a sentiment score for the messages the player sends to the NPC, tied into an aggression meter, which I should probably fix the spelling on. If the player sends too many insulting gym-related terms, such as weak, slow, etc., the aggression meter will rise. If it gets too high, the NPC will attack the player and a beat-em-up style combat will take place like an arcade style game. The system this game will run on has up-to-date Chrome browser and sufficient power to handle either of these models through WebGPU. Any specific instruction not directly mentioned in this instruction is left to you to decide on and implement. Do not ask follow-up questions and do not present a partially completed result. I expect a fully functional game result. So we'll send this here, and if I were to guess, I would imagine this will perhaps take, if I need, call it 58 minutes. So this only took 16 minutes and 54 seconds. I'm very surprised by how quick this was. Perhaps it was simpler than I'd assessed, but it provided it to us in a zip, as well as the specific instructions to run this, so I'm very eager to see what this has. So unfortunately, whatever is supposed to happen, unless it specifically instructed me to download the files, but it should have done that automatically when I selected warm up local LLM. All right, so we have a fallback here. Let's just at least see what's up. Okay, this is kind of cool. Not necessarily as aesthetically pleasing as I'd want it to see. I do like the UI. It still has that GPT-ism visual aesthetic, which is like the dark blue and the bubbles. Now, really, the biggest issue right here is that this is unfortunately not working. Now, this does allow for image input, so I'm just going to send it a photo of this issue, as well as a slight description and say, fix it. All right, let's take a peek now at our hypothetically fixed variation. Local LLM download started. Perfect. And now we can see that it is properly downloading the specific files that we need. Let's go to max repr. Oh, okay. And it still has that weird lock issue where it basically, so right now it's almost as if you get sucked into someone's orbit and then you can't actually leave. So let's just see what happens. And keep in mind, oh, the spacebar issue. This is actually like using a tiny little LLM to power NPCs conversationally in a game, which I think is an area that is going to explode in popularity as the AIs get smaller and easier to run on edge devices and more folks implement them into their games. So we should, it's going to take a little bit of time to actually get a response here, and that's kind of what I mean, that this may become more popular as latency gets reduced for edge devices and things like that. As right now, it breaks immersion how slow the response is, but we need to just make sure we do actually get one. I want to take a look at the code real quick because this is taking a bit longer than I'd anticipated. So this laptop has a mobile 4060. It's not the fastest thing in the world. So this is pretty cool actually in looking in the code here because we see more about its architectural decisions. And I know most of my testing doesn't really revolve around actually like looking at this stuff. We just like looking at the actual results. But this is very interesting because it did actually give specific personas to each of these gym characters, which we can see right here. So we have the max repper, competitive but secretly supportive, loves bench press, protein shakes, and dramatic one-liners. Vega, Coach Vega, gruff, practical, disciplined, gives concise form advice and hates excuses more than insults. Cardio Kai, fast-talking, witty, and oddly wise, turns every combo into an endurance metaphor. And I did just hear the fans ramp down, so it is possible we did get a result. Calm, sharp, and playful, flexi flow, encourages breathing, balance, and clever comebacks. And then we have Nitro Nash, the boxing trainer, arcade fighter, short fuse, big heart, and a habit of shadow boxing between sessions. And they all actually have specific aggression scores as well, with this one having the highest. Now, something else that I thought was pretty cool here is the sentiment analysis that it put in is actually kind of hard-coded. So if we scroll down, we can see the analyze message sentiment function right here. We have sentiment scores for a bunch of specific like trigger words for that sentiment, and that's pretty cool. And then when it's actually building the LLM message, we can see a lot of this is specifically like kind of put into that. So it could definitely make it a bit slower just to have to process a longer prompt or something of the sort. And then also we have fallback replies and things like that. So architecturally, this seems to have gone in an interesting direction here. I'm fine as I was when I came in here first. Can't wait to show everyone how strong I really am. And again, this is a small quantized older model. I think this model came out in like September of 2024. So now the biggest issue is we can't actually walk away. We're stuck in the orbit and it's so frustrating. So I've given it the additional follow-up, which is just saying, okay, the LLM issue is resolved. I didn't really tell it like it's kind of slow to respond because those are some more hardware limitations. If I ran this on a different system, it would inevitably be significantly faster. Additionally, I told it to fix the snap issue where we just immediately get sucked into the orbit or position next to Coach Vega. Finally, I also want it so the player can initiate conversations and it doesn't happen where the NPCs initiate them. The text box has the issue where for some reason spacebar is not getting recognized or inputted, which just makes things odd and can kind of mess up the conversation. Then finally, allow the player to attack NPCs without even needing to have a conversation with them. So this should hopefully get us to where we want to be in terms of an actual functional result. All right, let's check this out. I did also turn my speaker on, which I did not have on before. First, we want to make sure, good. J is to, good. And there is actually sound. It's just really quiet, but that is okay. So that's J, which is to punch. K is to kick. Good. And we can actually see the animations are not bad. They're simple, but that's okay. All right, so let's go talk to Nitro Nash. I believe this was the one who had the highest aggression score. And I actually want to just peek at the, at the specific words that would trigger it. Weak, slow, scrawny, pathetic. Just see what it does. Oh. Okay, that immediately started a fight. This is good. Nitro Nash is knocked down. Score bonus. Is he actually knocked down? Oh, he was. I'm good, mostly. We cool. That was like an immediate. So the thing is, we didn't have to wait for the LLM response because the sentiment analysis just immediately triggered. Noodle arms was one. Aggression has gone up. Good. Now we need to wait for the actual response because this is one where it's just one word, so it won't immediately trigger the fight sequence. I'm enjoying. I like this. All right, awesome. So we did actually get a result. It took very long time, but it was accompanied by a little boop sound. And he said, you can't beat this. Watch your waist get bulged out like a noodle. But then again, that's what we're here for. Hey, look where you left off. I'm still up on my ladder, ready to see more wins from now until nightfall. Again, you have to understand, this is a quantized, very tiny model. So we, let's just initiate some aggression with the sentiment analysis. Yep, all right. And the scores, I like that. It's almost like showing like a hit point thing. Let's see what happens if we lose. All right. Breathe, then train smarter. Okay, knock down, back on your feet. Interesting. Can we attack multiple people, I wonder? No, it seems like it locks it to just one, which is fine. We can block too. Oh, that actually does work, and it shows block. He just got kicked, like in a bad spot. All right, uh-oh. Okay, so I think overall, I would have initially expected this to have worked better the first try, but I will say subsequent runs have made for a pretty interesting and pleasing experience. The biggest issue is the AI latency and things like that, but one could imagine running this with perhaps a less strict variant of that model on a faster system, and you could really have some fun smack talking in a little environment like this, or any specific type of game you want. I mean, a gym thing is just something that came to mind, but AI NPCs are something that are definitely going to become more prevalent in the future as the hardware and the models allow for low latency responses. So an interesting first test. Now for the next test, I do want to just start out by mentioning something I believe I neglected to mention. There are two specific thinking efforts selectable for Pro mode, standard or extended. I have it on extended and I will for every single test we run. So our next test is going to be something that I would consider too difficult. I do not believe that this will successfully be able to do this even when given additional follow-ups, though I would be quite pleased to be proven wrong. So when testing GPT-5.5, the non-pro version when it came out a few days ago, one of the tasks I gave it was to actually create an exe file that would run on Windows XP. We then burned that to a disk, brought it over to an old XP laptop, and were able to actually see a little GUI element open that said hello from GPT-5.5. Following that, I had it try to create a little simple like top-down Grand Theft Auto style game. It did did open and there were signs of a map, but unfortunately it just said Windows has encountered an error and the program did not work. So this is going to be a significantly more difficult task, which is related, where essentially I'm telling it I have this old Windows XP laptop, here's the specific version, and I'm telling it it's not up to date, so it doesn't try to do something that would require like Service Pack 3 or something really up to date for XP, as well as an Akai MPK Mini MK3 MIDI keyboard. So basically the whole task is to create a simple synth program for XP that will allow me to plug my little keyboard into the system, show an on-screen interface with 2 to 3 selectable sound effects, as well as a scale selection for different octaves, being that this only has 25 keys, so we want to be able to cover the full range of an 88 key piano as one would have. The result should be an EXE and anything else needed to get this to work. The entire goal is a simple program with a GUI to allow me to use this keyboard with the system. It will be attached via USB. Again, I do not believe this is going to be able to do this, but I'm quite eager to see, and I would be really impressed if it pulled this off. Alright, so right about 16 minutes, we received a small XP compatible Win32 synth executable. It's called XP MPK Mini Synth. It has a GUI with MIDI input selection, sound preset, scale root selection, octave shifting, refresh, and panic/all notes off. It outputs through the Windows default audio device using the XP Aero Wave Out, so it should use the laptop speakers and headphone jacks without a bunch of additional stuff. Akai's MPK FAQ says it's a class-compliant USB MIDI keyboard that sends MIDI messages to computer software rather than producing sound itself, which is exactly what this program is designed to receive and synthesize. Included controls, and we have some other specific like sound effects and things like that. I'm very, very eager to see exactly what happens here. So in lieu of burning this to a CD, I think I'm probably just going to do a flash drive here. All right, so we have our package copied over here, and I do have the synth. All right, so I'm gonna unplug that, plug this little keyboard in. Again, I don't really expect this to work, or at least not on the first try, but it would be really quite something, I think, if it did. So I'm very eager. All right, good. It does understand it, and it actually understood in the bottom right corner. We actually got the name of this thing, which makes me a little bullish that this may work. Let's just try running it as administrator. All right, so it's not exactly what I had expected. It is a really simple GUI. However, the point is, it does, let's just see. Oh my God, it works. I actually hear it. It's just like the octave. So watch this. It's gonna be real hard to hear, but and then if we put the octave back up, that is really something. Let's change our sound preset. So right now it's soft sine lead. Let's do 8-bit square. This should be a little more noticeable. That's that's wild. All right, so basically I'm gonna be like vlogging here. That actually worked. And I did not expect that would work. Like maybe eventually, not on the first try. So when I tried having 5.5 make a more complex program, it did not work at all. But as we can see right here, we genuinely have something that and we're really able to change our sound preset. So let's try bell pluck. We haven't tried that. Harder to hear, but that is awesome. So as we saw, that worked perfectly. I may have been expecting more of an aesthetic UI. I will be honest about that, but functionally it worked. The sound effects worked. I'm very impressed that in this time, which was not even 16 minutes, it did this. As I may have said, I may have overestimated the complexity of this, but I don't know, because I tried 5.5 with what I would have assumed to be a simpler task, which was like the little overhead GTA game, and it didn't work. This worked, and this was definitely more complex. So I'm very impressed. So now I'm going to be giving this a sprite sheet of 10 different types of vehicles, each with 10 specific angles shown for each one of them. That was generated with GPT Image 2. I'm going to have it turn this into a game. However, it would be too simple to just have it cut up this sprite sheet and then use these for a simple like 2D or 2.5D game. I want this to make a little city, I'll call it like a Wangan style. So if we do a Control T. This is, and I very much likely am mispronouncing the name, but it's kind of a place in Japan where, at least culturally, in terms of how it's made its way into games and car culture, it's known for like some of the street racing. So I'm going to say, and this is going to be a more casual prompt, use this sprite sheet. So this was a more off-the-cuff prompt, but the whole point is to use this sprite sheet for a 3D Wangan racing game. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but the highway that goes through Tokyo that's known for like street racing and things culturally, I guess could be said. It should have a proper Tokyo-looking map that loops through the city. The driver will be able to select any of these 10 cars, and the opponent vehicles will be AI-driven in any of the remaining non-selected vehicles. The game must be 3D, meaning these sprites will have to be wrapped around simple vehicle models in the proper orientation and in a way that preserves their detail and overall shape. They should have visible tires that move, smoke effects for slides, effects for collision, etc. It can be more arcade style, but it must look good. The camera should be third person behind the player's car, make a good looking menu UI and for the game as well. So this one is interesting because we'll actually see how it's figuring out how to look through this sprite sheet. Now I did something very, very similar to this in my 5.5 testing in the non-pro model, and we were using that through codecs. It did ultimately wrap them around a simple vehicle model at a varying degree of success, but I will say that it actually had cool like smoke effects and tires moving. So I'm looking basically for a fairly significant improvement in this to what I had received with the regular 5.5 through codecs, and I'm kind of hopeful that we'll get it. So in 28 minutes and 30 seconds basically, which interestingly is the longest result we've had to wait for so far for this little racing game, which is cool, I guess. I would have thought it would be like the XP program, but regardless, it created it and we can download it now and basically just run it. All right. So far, I like what I'm seeing. It's got the GPT blue style aesthetic, but all of the cars here look very good. This is also a test of its ability to use that sprite sheet, which was AI generated. So it was not like properly, you know what I mean? Maybe like it wasn't a specific sprite sheet style. It just kind of, so far this looks good, and it actually gave them each like specifications in terms of their handling and things of the sort. For now, let's just start with the first one. Let's see how this did in actually wrapping the textures. Okay, Bayside Run. We do have wheels. Now, I'm going to note here, this map is incredibly jank, but the areas where it isn't are pretty cool. Okay, good. Now we're contact, smoke effects. Okay, so it basically just did we crash out? It basically just put, okay, from right here, this looks pretty cool, but it basically just put the sprite sheets over cubes, and that's bad. And this is worthy of essentially being insulted, I would imagine, because there's some good here, but there's also some bad. So I'm actually going to give it 2 photos because there was something else here that was significantly impeding our ability to actually play this game, which of course was the fact the buildings are just laid out through the actual track. So I'm going to give it 2 screenshots, one of the cube car thing and one of the buildings being on the track. Wow, where do I begin? So I've given it this follow-up, which is somewhat harsh, but I truly do believe it is deserving of this harsh feedback. I am almost insulted, truth be told. I clicked trash by mistake. That was a Freudian click. Now, ooh, we saw another car go down there. Okay, so there's a cool loop. Really, just the way that it literally made a cube and pasted the sprites onto it, which makes me angry. There's obviously, I mean, from right here, like, it's not bad. And this, I just not a huge fan of whatever the heck is going on there. All right, in 16 minutes, it began by telling us that we were right to call that out, which indeed we were, because I was just not happy with that lackluster attempt at wrapping those sprites around. So let's take a peek and see what we get. So fingers crossed we get something a little more vehicle-like. Okay, you know what? I'll take it. It tried. The map is better in that there are no specific buildings in the road. I will say spacebar to drift is actually kind of sick. As we come up on the enemies right here, I hate this stupid, like, I don't understand. At least we can press R and it actually resets us to our current position, which is good instead of restarting us from the... It's difficult. I'm going to try a different vehicle. I assume they're all going to be kind of mangled, but it did, you know, it made some of the changes. This is difficult. And then this, I should have told it to get rid of this because this is infuriating. The bridges look good and the buildings, and we almost see like some shipping containers there or something. We'll look at a more cube-like vehicle, which would be this GMC Typhoon. Okay, still a bit odd. But in the distance, when we see the other vehicles actually driving it, it looks quite good in this map and things like that. It's only when you really start to actually look that it's like, ooh. But like right here, no, it's just frustrating. I'm over this. You know what? This is frustrating. It's got huge potential. The signs look good, the buildings, and but genuinely, I'm over it. It's frustrating me, and I don't know why. So with that, I do have a much cooler prompt right here, which I did just write up. So this is going to be I can't speak. Make a game 3D cartoon style called Wall Street Bets. Now, if you know, this is a popular subreddit related to like finance and stock stuff. The game should be inside the New York Stock Exchange, with emphasis on fine-grained detail, screens that light up, tickers, etc. The game should be a free roam where the player in third person walks around and the NPCs have thought bubbles that appear with lingo that would be found in the r/Wall Street Bet subreddit, things like diamond hands and other lingo that would be found in there. There should be enough individual strings that no repetition in thought bubbles is common, basically saying like I want 100 plus different little bits of lingo to appear in the thought bubbles so we don't just have all the NPCs thinking the same exact thing. The goal of the game is up to you. Avoid explicit slurs. Yes, that's true. The goal of the game is up to you. It can be a beat 'em up style game or something more creative. The goal is a very good looking result and it must be contained in a single HTML script. Use sound effects and other visual polish to make it awesome. I can't imagine it will take too long to do this, but I want to just see more like the artistic direction that it takes this. All right, so after a power nap, I am back at this, and we can see in 21 minutes and 14 seconds, we received our Wall Street Bets game, a single self-contained HTML game with a cartoon 3D New York Stock Exchange style floor, glowing screens and tickers, roaming NPCs with randomized WSB style thought bubbles, collectibles, high fives, bear market interns, sound effects, particles, minimap, and a moon mode win state. Open it in a browser, click start. So let's see our Wall Street Bets game. So far, this looks sick. Just from what I can see with this UI in the background. Okay. Free roam the floor, collect glowing 10D tickets. That is lingo all from the Wall Street Bets subreddit. High five hype-starved brokers, dodge bear market interns, and ring the closing bell when the floor hits peak meme velocity. Okay. NPC thought bubbles rotate through a big shuffled pool of WSB style lingo, so repeats should be rare. All right. This map is really good. Okay. Look at the way it did the candles on the wall. This is, I mean, I don't know what, I don't quite understand the point, but basically I was more interested in the actual like UI and things here. And this, I mean, the way it actually drew this map is, in my opinion, very good. So the bears are chasing us. I still can't ring the bell. I need 6 more tendies. Oh, okay. All right, we can do that. So I have to collect 6 more of these tendies tickets, which is also WSB lingo. I need 1 more tendy. Where's the... Oh, it's back there. Okay. All right, the bell is ready and it actually changed in the UI. So let's go. We'll ring this bell. All right, here we go. Moon mode, and that's the game. The floor has gone full cartoon in 250 seconds with 20 tendy tickets and 26 broker high fives. Well, I don't quite know what to make of this, but it was certainly interesting, and I would say the actual UI was awesome. Like, the actual map was very good. I liked that a lot. Again, I don't quite know what to say, but something I am somewhat interested in seeing is how many specific thought bubble snippets of text did it include. So let's take a look at the script and actually check that out. Yeah, I'd say that definitely put a large amount of specific lingo here. I don't know how much, but we can see that was a very, very lengthy line, and then there was another one under it. So it did properly do that. Very good. This next one I think is going to be a different type of test where I'm giving it a really simple one-sentence prompt saying create an exact dimensional or dimensionally accurate replica of an Xbox controller using OpenSCAD, or however you would go about pronouncing that. Now, OpenSCAD, if we just Google it real quick, is basically like a 3D modeling program that is almost just like all written in code. So they say a software for creating solid 3D CAD objects, and it's very code related. I did a test a while back where I had two state-of-the-art back then models do a test that involved actually writing code for this so it could generate the 3D model from the code they wrote. Neither of them really got it perfectly, so this will be a difficult test to see how well this thing can handle like spatial analysis and then transposing that into an actual 3D item. So, and then if it looks really good after, maybe we'll 3D print it. All right, 9 minutes and 14 seconds later, we have created an Xbox One modern Xbox controller style replica. I did see this was looking for actual like store listings and things to find the specific dimensions of this controller. So I'm excited to see this because I am interested in 3D printing this, to be honest with you. Okay, it's not perfect, but I will say it's made more difficult by the way it's rendering here. We actually do see specific elements for the top plate in the thumb like nubs, the buttons, and then if we look underneath, I can tell you right now I'm not going to 3D print this because it would just be a disaster. There's too many like unjoined surfaces, but we can see it did kind of have the end like effects here of a controller. Now, I have another test that I'm really excited to run, but I think it would be doing a disservice to not give it an image of this to see how it can actually go about trying to remedy some of the issues we're noticing. So that is what I'm going to do right here. And I think the best way to do that is to just specifically give it a photo of what exactly we have here from maybe one or two different angles. I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just saying this is the result. I would imagine it will see this and be like, oh wow, this looks terrible. I'm going to fix it using whatever techniques. Good. All right, in 7.5 minutes, it said, you're right. That result is not acceptable. And I do just want to point out, I didn't specifically say that. I just gave it photos of the result, so it came to that conclusion on its own, which I am happy about because it was not acceptable in any way. So here's the new one. Okay. It's taking significantly longer to load, which could be indicative of a more detailed result, but I am cautious. You know what? That's better. I'm still not going to 3D print this because it will just be kind of disastrous, but we can see the yellow cuts are actually fixed. There is more of a controller style shape to this, I would say, even looking at it from the bottom. Now, I know it's kind of hard to really be able to gauge what we're seeing here, but it did change the location of the controls as well. We do have the thumbsticks there, and this is a significant improvement to what we had seen in first glance. Even having the upper buttons protruding out a bit, we can see that as well. And if we are just to kind of like look at the vague shape from like this angle, maybe you can kind of see like, oh, okay, that's somewhat of a controller. So in lieu of the traditional like SVG test of an actual controller, I wanted to push this a little harder because it is a pro model and actually make the 3D model for a controller. And I would say, after the second iteration, this was actually acceptable, and this is something that I'd like to do consistently as these models come out at like better intervals to test like kind of like how the browser OS has shown significant improvement over generations of models. I feel like this is something to run with the highest end of models, I suppose could be said. So it'll be something to keep an eye on as they do evolve. So for our final test, I am going to have it create a low poly sport bike racing game using Three.js. The game should feature high quality motorcycle and rider models and take place on a simple racetrack. Emphasis on details such as track barriers, grandstands, and infield items, as well as smoke particle effects from the exhaust, skids, etc., should be arcade feel and placed in the game. It should have sounds in a simple game menu where the user can select their bike and rider. Each rider should have stats and a bio about them. Track elevation is optional, though it would improve the experience of the game as long as it does not break the rendering. Sometimes if it tries to put track elevation in, basically the ground will be elevated, but the track will stay flat. So it'll just kind of mess up like the visuals. So that's why I've worded it that way for that specific line. Create a UI that shows the rider a motorcycle style speedometer, gear indicator, and rev counter. Keep it in the same style a modern sport bike would have. A modern sport bike would mainly just have a big tachometer, which is what shows the RPMs, and the speed would be less like, I don't know. We'll see what it does here. And then if a player accelerates hard, the bike will perform a wheelie momentarily, but it will return flat and continue accelerating. Okay, I spelled that wrong. Include realistic lean effects on both the rider and the bike. The camera should be third person behind the player's bike with an option to change to first person, which will show the correct detail that would be seen in a first person view, which would basically be the handlebars and things like that. The result should be contained within a single script. So I think this will be fun in terms of the result. So in 17.5 minutes, we have our single file sport bike racer game. Let's just check it out. Okay, low poly GP, select rider. Okay, I was hoping that we would get like a little photo of the rider as well, but we do have different selectable bikes. I think I'm going to go with the 1000R just to get that leader bike. Okay, late break daredevil, flow specialist, and data-driven ace. I'll probably go with the data-driven ace. Too loud, too loud. Okay, this is why I was worried about having elevation here, is because we can see the model is impressive. Look at the wheelie and the sport bike model. We should have the first person view as well. How do we change the camera view? Let's check our first person view. All right. That is cool. The problem is the camera has like a speed effect on it, so it drifts back as we go faster, which messes up the first person view. This is just like all right, I have some feedback. Though there is high potential here, I will say. Extremely so. I want to give it a photo of that. And then additionally, I want to go to like the elevation. There we go. So everything's just floating off the ground, which is a little frustrating. So I've given it honest feedback and all of these specific things noticed that I wanted to fix, but I'm going to say just first and foremost, this is really impressive in terms of like the bike model. And even when you do a wheelie like that, the lean effect is actually like the smoke effects, the skid marks. This has such huge potential. All right, so it said that we were right to call those issues out, which in fact we absolutely were. Let's just take a look at our fixed version. I'll use the 1000R. We'll use this individual as the rider, and it removed the elevation, fixed the grandstands, and moved pit lane. Significantly better. Let's check the first person view. Very good. Okay, it locked it a bit, like it could have shown the lean of the bike. I mean, look at this right here. This is actually, this is really cool. We can actually just get a better look at the bike models. There's actually rims that are noticeable. It did slow the opponents down, perhaps a bit too much, but I did tell it to, so regardless. Still though, I'm left a little disappointed. So I've given it some final feedback here. This is going to be the final test that we give it. I mean, this will be the final iteration chance that we give it. Basically, I'm just saying like, come on, you can do better than this, and we'll see how it does. So here's our third pass and what should hopefully be a very, very proper result. I'm going to, of course, start with the 1000 or the leader bike. Okay, significantly better. We have, okay, so those weird lines on the screen are speed effects, but I'm going to say this is absolutely fantastic in terms of the speed immersion that it added. The pit lane's more deep. There's a building in the road again. This model is frustrating, I'm going to say, because this is going to lead us into our closing thoughts anyway. I'm not really going to do the traditional results overview here because they were so spread out over basically like 24 hours that I've been like doing this test. I will say the model seems a bit lazy, where it's making simple mistakes like what we saw with the Tokyo Sprite track as well, which is just really kind of frustrating, where buildings are just appearing on the track like that. Oh, we made ourselves into pit lane there. And I just feel like it's excellent, but at the same time, it feels incompetent on purpose. Like, all of this should have been able to have just popped this out in first try. Okay, I told it to do elevation, so assume in a second try, I would have expected to have seen this. We have cars in a parking lot there. The track is better. The actual sensation of speed is significantly better. And let's try our first person view. See, this is excellent. This is exactly what I wanted. This really is quite well done. We even see the rider model actually showing some level of lean here. And if it just, the buildings on the track are just really the only extreme level of frustration that I'm noticing here. This was a fantastic end result aside from the buildings on the track. This is genuinely fun to play. I'm genuinely actually distracted right now in terms of me speaking. The wheelies are cool. This is cool. And we have those speed lines, which let's let that other rider kind of pass us. If you'd showed me this like 2-3 years ago and been like, yeah, the AI made this in like 3 tries, but genuinely in 1 try, it actually had like the model done right, I would have been like, wow. So really, that is going to conclude our test of GPT-5.5 Pro. To kind of sum up what I was beginning to say here, it's very powerful, but it seems a little almost lazy, where like getting stuff on the track like that, it shouldn't happen. It knows better than that. So it's definitely producing results significantly quicker than 5.4 Pro would have in the previous Pro models, but I don't know what the specific trade-off for that is. It's competent, it's all there, it's just kind of like, feels like it's giving like 80% effort when it should be giving 100% effort. It's close, I just would like it to be a little more competent because it has the ability to, and we don't know how much of it is tuned to kind of be cost saving, especially when using it through the ChatGPT subscription, because this is a really expensive model to run. If I ran 1 million output tokens through this using it through my ChatGPT subscription, that's more or less the entire cost of the 1 month subscription, so we have to keep that in mind as well. And really, that is going to conclude our first look and test of the GPT 5.5 Pro model. Overall, I will be using this myself for personal things that will not be spoken about unless you sign up for my course. No, I'm kidding. No courses. However, what I will do is I am going to put the motorcycle game up on my Ultimate Play website, so by the time this video drops, if anyone wants to go and play that motorcycle game with the buildings in the track, but other than that, everything is pretty awesome, then you will be able to. And this was just, oh, that's the old version. I'll put the new one on. So that's going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.